Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of history's most epic sieges, a story that's really all about an 800-year-old obsession to conquer a city that was thought to be absolutely unconquerable. So picture this. For 800 years, Islamic empires had this one singular goal, to capture Constantinople. And this wasn't just any city. It was a symbol, the heart of the Christian world in the East, the gateway to Europe, and the absolute center of global trade. 23 separate armies, led by some of the greatest commanders in history, threw everything they had at its walls. We're talking new technologies, huge numbers, and this passionate belief that they were the ones who would finally succeed.
And guess what? Every single one of them failed. The city basically earned its nickname, the Impossible City. So, this is the story of how a young, underestimated Sultan finally did what all those legendary leaders before him couldn't.
Okay, so to really wrap your head around this massive achievement, you first have to understand the challenge. For 1,000 years, Constantinople wasn't just a city, it was the most heavily fortified place on the entire planet.
I mean, its defenses were a work of art. You've got the sea on three sides, and then this legendary triple wall system on the fourth. But its most clever defense, it was brilliantly simple. A single, gigantic iron chain stretched right across the mouth of its main harbor, the Golden Horn. For 8 centuries, that one chain had wrecked every navy that tried to get past it. This 800-year-old dream was passed from father to son, like this huge legacy. And now, it rested on the shoulders of a brand new, very young sultan, Mehmed II.
So when Mehmed takes the throne, he's just 21. And literally nobody takes him seriously. His own advisors think he's just a kid. Over in Europe, the kings are actually celebrating. They thought the great Ottoman threat was now being led by some naive boy. They had absolutely no idea who they were dealing with.
But boy, did they underestimate him. See, he'd grown up hearing stories of his own father's failed attempt to take the city. So for him, this wasn't just some military campaign, this was personal. And he made his intentions crystal clear to everyone with this vow. Mehmed launches his attack with all this confidence, but he immediately slams into the exact same brutal problems that had destroyed every single army before him. First up, his navy. His fleet of 200 ships sails right for the Golden Horn, totally sure they can break through. And bam, stopped dead in their tracks by that 800-year-old chain and then blasted by cannon fire. Attempt number 1? A complete and total failure.
All right, Plan B. He throws his massive army, nearly 100,000 soldiers, against the land walls. But the defense was just ferocious. They took thousands of casualties and couldn't even get past the first layer. Another bloody failure.
Now he's getting desperate. He tries a new tactic, digging tunnels under the walls to sneak in from below. But the defenders found out. And, well, it got horrific. They poured oil into the tunnels and burned his elite soldiers alive.
Okay, last resort. He unleashes his secret weapon, a technological marvel, the largest cannon ever built, nicknamed the Basilica. This thing was a monster. It could fire these huge cannonballs to actually crack the walls. But it had one massive, fatal flaw. And right here, you can see the huge gap between the promise and the reality. Yeah, it was powerful, but it was just way too slow. It took 3 hours to reload. That gave the defenders plenty of time to repair the damage. It wasn't very accurate either, and eventually, the cannon literally cracked itself apart. The superweapon was a bust. So at this point, every single strategy has failed. Morale just hits rock bottom. Even his Grand Vizier, his most trusted advisor, is begging him to give up and go home. It really seemed like the siege was over, about to become the 24th failure in this long 800-year-old story. But here's the thing. While his entire army is in despair and his advisors are telling him to quit, Mehmed is thinking differently. He's looking at the problem not as a wall he has to break, but as a puzzle he has to solve. And he started asking a new question. If the chain is the one thing I can't break, what if I don't have to? What Mehmed came up with next was a plan so insane, so completely outside the box, that nobody in history had ever even considered it. It was a plan that would basically redefine the word impossible. Get this. Working in total secrecy, under the cover of night, his engineers build a road of greased logs over the hills. And then, using the power of thousands of men and oxen, they do the unthinkable. They haul an entire fleet of 70 warships out of the water and drag them overland, completely going around the chain. Can you just imagine the shock?
The psychological blow was just devastating. The one place they thought they were completely safe was now suddenly filled with enemy ships. The defenders' morale just shattered. And now they had to defend a whole new front, which stretched their forces dangerously thin.
With the city's defenses now split wide open and its people completely demoralized, Mehmed knew this was the moment. He ordered the final all-out assault from both land and sea at the same time.
After one last bloody battle, the city that had stood for 1,000 years, the city that had broken 23 armies, finally fell. The last Roman emperor actually died fighting right there on the walls with his men. A pretty heroic end to a very ancient empire.
And that 21-year-old boy that everyone had dismissed, he rode into the city not as a child, but as Mehmed the Conqueror, establishing a new capital for his Ottoman Empire that would last for almost 500 years.
So Mehmed's victory teaches us a huge lesson. This wasn't just about military might. It was really a masterclass in leadership. His persistence, facing 4 total disasters and refusing to quit, was key. But it was his ability to innovate, to get creative when brute force failed, that was the real game changer.
In the end, it was his absolute, unwavering commitment, his willingness to risk everything on a plan that everyone else would have called crazy, that turned an 800-year-old dream into one of the greatest and most improbable victories in all of history.